When you think of quickswap, does your brain automatically jump to characters like Changli or Qiuyuan? Well, you're wrong. In reality, every character in the game should be quickswapping for optimal DPS. But don't worry, that's why I'm here. Today, we're breaking down how to quickswap step by step using different levels of gameplay, starting with... Before you can start quickswapping, you need to understand the basics of how rotations work. At their most basic, team comps want to rotate from the first character to the last one in order. In this case, we use Rhinne's outro into Sanhua and use Sanhua's outro into Camellia. This type of gameplay is colloquially known as 1, 2, 3, which refers to going to the character's outros in order without swapping. You also need to understand that while doing this, your characters have optimal combos to fill up their concerto bar. In this case, we have an S2 Rhinne with variation, so all I need to do is ultimate, use my skill, and aerial auto 3 times on her. S5 on Sanhua means I can use my intro, use my skill, use my ultimate, detonate, and then go into Camellia. No, I'm not going to explain this for every single character here, and if I'm being honest, if you're in a quickswap guide and you don't understand this stuff, you probably have your priorities wrong. But who am I to judge? Just make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and let's get to the next level. Certain skills and actions on your characters will continue even if your character is off field. When you move to another character while your original character is acting, that's quickswapping. The advantage of this is getting to shorten your rotation times, meaning instead of taking, say, 30 seconds for a rotation, you can get a similar output in just 25. In this case, that would be a roughly 16% team DPS increase, which for reference is more than going from a standard 5-star weapon to most signature weapons in the game. I'd say that's a pretty good reason to start quickswapping. To make this easier for you, I'm going to break this down into steps. Step 1, identify the quickswap windows for your characters. Carlotta can easily swap during her skill, forte, and echo cast, so those are our windows to move to other characters. Changli wants to swap on her skill, forte, true sight, and basic 4. And yes, even shorekeeper has quickswap windows, mainly her basic 3 and her skill. Step 2. Now that you've identified the windows in which you can actually swap during, you need to understand what your characters actually want to do, aka their goals. Many characters have outro skills that buff the incoming character, such as Cartethyia or Sanhua. If you're using one of these characters, make sure your quick swapping is done before you apply the outro buff, or it'll fall off and you'll lose DPS for attention. In the case of our current team with Changli, Carlotta, and Shorekeeper, that's actually not an issue. Carlotta wants to build up her forte with her skill, use her forte, and then ult. Changli wants to build up her forte, use it, liberation, and then forte again. And Shorekeeper just wants to cast her ultimate before anyone uses their outros for maximum buffs. Yeah, she's pretty brain dead. Now, we can start using this line of thinking to find windows to make our rotations faster. Anytime Carlotta is using her skill or forte, you can always swap into Changli to do an action. When I do my third basic on Shorekeeper, maybe I swap into Changli and use her true sight. I want to emphasize, at this stage, it doesn't matter if what you're doing is technically optimal for gameplay. The whole point of what I'm doing right now is to try and get you more familiar with your swap windows on your characters so you can actually get in the habit of moving off those characters during those windows. In order to actually learn quick swap, you need to get the muscle memory of actually moving from one character to another during these quick swap windows. So start practicing like this and don't worry too much about whether or not what you're doing is the optimal rotation. Experimenting like this is overpowered for learning anything really. Or don't and waste all the time and effort I spent making this. That is such a Before we get more in depth, there's one more fundamental mechanic you need to understand for quick swapping. I don't know if there's an official name for it, so I'm just going to refer to it as chaining. Basically, when you want to swap to a specific character, instead of swapping straight into that character, you swap into another character on your team first, use a quick action like an Echo Cast or Changli skill, and swap from there into the character you originally wanted to go into. That sounded really complicated, but once you see it in action, I promise it'll be easy to replicate. Remember the goals we talked about earlier? They actually come into play here. I'm using double intro Camellia, and yes, this team does quick swap. I was serious when I said that every team does. Rhinne in this case does not want to be introed into because her concerto is already quick, so I'm outroing from Camellia into Sanhua. From here though, I want to outro from Rhinne back into Camellia first before I use Sanhua's outro skill. Otherwise, I'll lose Sanhua's outro buff during the important parts of Camellia's rotation due to her rotation just being too long. Instead of swapping straight back into Rhinne to accomplish this, I'll swap into Camellia first, cast an echo skill, and then swap back into Rhinne. If you can reframe thinking about quick swap from whatever idea you had into your mind into more like this, it'll make you swapping between all 3 characters on your roster that much simpler every time you do it. When you think of the harder to play quick swap teams like Mono Fusion or Mono Spectro, this is literally all you are doing. Just all the time and with more complicated kits. That's why I'm showcasing these easier examples in teams. That way you don't hurt yourself trying to go straight into mono fusion. It would be like first timing riding a bike and skipping out on the training wheels. Let's start putting everything we learned into action. Our team this time is Augusta, Mortefi, Shorekeeper. Remember, we always need to think of the goals our team comp wants to accomplish. Shorekeeper, we already know. Just get your ultimate up and then outro. Mortefi wants to build his concerto as fast as possible, ult out into Augusta to give his outro buff, and the best way to do that is to utilize chaining. If you swap into Mortefi, he'll automatically cast his 4th basic attack. When combined with his intro, his skill, his enhanced skill, and his ultimate, Mortefi needs to cast his 4th basic 3 times to have max concerto. So our goal becomes to chain through Mortefi 3 times if possible. Augusta's goal is to build up her forte with her skill and her enhanced heavy attack. With those, her ultimate, and her echo being used in quick swap windows, we can utilize all 3 while chaining through Mortefi, making this team line up extremely well for quick swap. In practice, the rotation will look like this. Augusta's skill, chain through Mortefi, Shorekeeper, auto 1, 2, 3, ultimate. Shorekeeper, auto 1, 2, 3, forte cast, skill, echo, chain Mortefi to Augusta, use your heavy attack, back to Shorekeeper to 1, 2, 3 again. Then we go back to Augusta, use our ultimates, chain through Mortefi one last time, back to Shorekeeper, fill up your outro, go into Mortefi, intro skilled, use your skill, cancel your skill with your ultimate as you'll still gain the concerto bar, use your enhanced skill, Baron or Hecate depending on what set you're playing, and then into Augusta. As I'm doing this rotation, here's what's going through my head. I'm just thinking I need to swap through Mortefi 3 times, and then as I'm doing that, I need to either go to Augusta or Shorekeeper and press some ability. In Augusta's case, I'm either using her skill or enhanced heavy attack, and in Shorekeeper's case, I'm probably just doing 3 of her auto attacks. By breaking down Quickswap into goals, the lingering abilities, and chaining, I'm able to make a rotation like this, and now I'm also able to apply that if I end up switching out certain characters. If I were to say play GN Mortefi Shorekeeper, the quick swapping for this comp is almost exactly the same, even though I'm not using one of the characters from the original comp. The only difference would be GN only has 2 quick swap windows with his skill and his echo, so I would modify the rotation around that. But let's move on to the final part. The final part about learning how to quick swap is understanding how to use bosses to your benefit. Dodging gives you concerto, and if you utilize this properly, you can shorten your rotation timer even more. This matters a lot when the rotation time of a character adds basically nothing to a team comp. Take Shorekeeper. Besides using her ultimate and skill for echo buffs, her only goal is to build up her outro skill. That means when she's wasting her field time shaking like a seizure patient and hitting the enemies with a wet noodle, you're not actually gaining anything. Instead, try to find windows to swap into Shorekeeper when the boss is attacking, so you can dodge and build up her concerto faster. If you end up using those dodges where it doesn't matter, like on a DPS such as Augusta, you are effectively wasting DPS. Do keep in mind though, this mentality doesn't apply if you have certain buffs that are lost on swap, so this is mainly for windows outside of that, or for team comps like this. Let's take a look at Mono Spectro. As I'm playing this, I'm conscious of the fact that Phoebe is my best character to dodge on, as her concerto is the main gate between me and doing damage on Zani. For reference, her outro gives 100% damage amp, and she's on Moonlit Clouds. Phoebe's autos also don't do any damage, so I'd rather be on her for as little time as possible. Phoebe actually doubly benefits from this, as her dodge puts her in her basic 3, and I can instantly star flash from there if needed. When I'm playing this comp, I know that my main goal is to start my Nightfall on Zani. Then I swap into either Phoebe or Rover while that's going on to do something. Usually either a Star Flash or a Rover skill, or one of their ultimates if available. I also need to cast Zani's skill before I go into ult, so I get the 20% crit rate buff, and outside of that, it's pretty much an ADHD open season. I start by putting Phoebe in Confession and animation canceling it with ult. From there, I animation cancel her skill with Heron and go into Zani, using her shield plus auto attack to build up half of her gauge to using her enhanced forte. Then I swap into Rover, canceling the echo cast with his ultimate and then using the skill before going back into Zani to auto attack with the shield. Now I abuse dodging on Phoebe in order to get my rotation out faster, while also putting out more basic 3s, meaning I generate my concerto even quicker. I go back into Zani to use her enhanced skill to proc the Eternal Radiance set before going back into Phoebe, finishing her concerto, and then going back into Zani with ultimate. From here, it's super basic. just get into Nightfall and then swap into either Phoebe or Rover. One thing you should worry about is if your Rover's concerto gets too high during the first rotation, it may screw over your ability to be able to use Zani's ultimate at the end. Because we use Rover's ult early in the rotation, it's back up in the middle of these Nightfalls. If you delay casting your ultimate enough, you can actually get a 4th Nightfall in for this first rotation, as your Phoebe's ult plus Confession mode will be back up. In this case, I didn't want to because it would delay the fight. Once I ult out of Zani, I basically do the same exact thing. I'm trying to build up Concerto on Phoebe, trying to animation cancel everything I can. I want to make sure I use my enhanced skill on Zani, and I want to make sure that I get as many stacks from Rover as possible. Anytime I have an outro from Zani, I make sure to use it into Rover to get the extra Forte, and anytime I have an outro from Phoebe, I make sure to use it on Zani to get the extra Forte. You can check out how I use Quickswap to get the world record in Wuthering Waves right here, and check me out at twitch.tv/Rhinne, where I stream all things gacha, from Wuthering Waves to Genshin to HSR to whatever's coming out in the future.